and right on my camera, a direct shot of my Davy Crockett, Isaac Newton, and Thomas Jefferson. Like really big right there. That'd be great for the kids. So this would be revolutionary. But not only that, this next slide is pretty amazing. So look at the north. Just imagine you're looking at, there we go. Look at the north. So first off, 1850, you know, a few little bits of track. The big decade. See it? Isn't it pretty startling, the difference? So the Civil War, a Civil War just about happened in 1850. It was close. And that would have been the war. The Civil War did start, South started in 1861. This, and what accompanied this, would be decisive for the victory of the United States. I don't think the United States would have survived in 1850. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I think the South kind of less France.
Well, there's lots of reasons. We'll get to it more down the road. But to the north, there was greater investment in like roads, bridges, canals by the state governments. And also the South, all their money and capital was in land and people. Here, there's more investments in business. So it's really a startlingly different world. And yes, slavery had a huge deal with that. They wanted to make sure that the slaveholders stayed on top. So we'll talk more about this when we get closer, but that's a really good question. And this, we'll get to the 1850s and it'll really become big. There was more industry in New York City alone than the entire South when the war began. So with that, 1859, look how the world has changed. Remember those maps I showed you? The little tiny bit that people could move? Look how much now in one day. And that's shipping goods. 2 days to Chicago, which is now 150,000 people in 1859, and will double in size we'll double in size every 7 years for the next 40 years. Which is kind of impossible to even imagine. That's not much different than today for most goods. I know airlines can move things faster, but it's so expensive, it's only small things can be moved. Still, it's fast today. It's close to our world. Yeah, it's still 6 weeks, but not for long. It's radically different. And that alone should tell you how much of the shift. You know, go back to this thing. I mean, look at that. 1800. It's just this little tiny area right there. Thank you. The whole world got smaller. And I know, gone the wrong way. Oh, let's. Pig. Everything changed. It is a radically different world. And we have elements of this, you know, in my lifetime, the effect of internet and telecommunications. There's a relationship, but it's nothing like this. This is impossible for us to imagine. And so with that, here's the big thing about the transportation revolution. Shipping prices halved. When that happened, and it's also massive government aid. The government helped. Now, this was mostly state governments. Remember, Henry Clay wanted that American system of government aid, but there's just a little bit. During the Civil War and afterwards, massive amounts of government aid for business. And look how the price dropped. This is the one thing about steamboats. Here's upstream river cost, steamboat. Wagons, more roads. Okay, the railroads, still incredibly low. I should add, or wagon, I'm sorry, this is down here, wagons up here. Road transportation is still more expensive. It's still a lot more expensive. But because of a combination of the railroads trying to maximize short-term profits and the flexibility of roads because the government has made so many roads for business, it's impossible to imagine business without roads today. You couldn't even, it wouldn't work. So let's get to what this means. Oh, new markets are supposed to be there. Massive new markets created everywhere. Just new markets. All over, it put markets together. all of a sudden now, New York City, you can sell your goods in Chicago in a day and a half. So that just revolutionized the world. I mean, think about it today because of transportation. You know, when I was your age, I remember it was or a little bit younger too, a big deal in the summer when the grapes and strawberries would get to the supermarkets. You'd have about a month and a half where you get grapes and strawberries. Like, yeah, grapes. I'll take that. For the scrapbook. Grapes and strawberries. Today, you get grapes and strawberries year round. You know, little things like that you don't think about. Well, you don't because it was like this your whole life. But it's still, to me, it's like, wow, you get strawberries in February. Okay, they're not quite as good because they've been in storage for a lot longer and all that, but it's still a strawberry. Same deal. All of a sudden now you get all this stuff. And costs drop to produce things dramatically. I can't emphasize this enough. One of the biggest costs for business is transportation. It's one of the reasons why you see so much inflation now. Transportation costs exploded during COVID. And the thing about it is, if transportation costs to move raw materials, whatever that might mean to the factories, which all of a sudden now they could move these raw materials to factories when before it was just too expensive. You know, think about moving iron to an iron mill or the coal to fuel it. It's so heavy and bulky, it's really expensive. Railroads change everything. Canals too, but railroads. But today, shipping costs, especially on the big container boats on the high seas and railroad costs, went up about 80% in 2021. 80% increase. You want to know why prices are going up today? If shipping costs go up, or if shipping costs were going up a year ago, you'll see the prices down the road in the next year. The prices keep going up because you're paying for the increased manufacturing costs that go up. That's why inflation is so high now. There are other reasons too. All the oil companies decided to put a third of their refineries. They shut them down for repair all at the same time last month. So oil prices still depressed. There's why they did it. It seems pretty suspicious, but big deal. Partially too because there's only a few companies left that produce anything. So if one company cuts back on production or the prices go up, it affects everything. We have so many monopolies. Next, that means manufactured goods can now get to people who could never buy them before. Things that you could never get before or would be so expensive or just this rare item would come in, like when I mentioned strawberries. Every once in a while they come in, now all of a sudden you could get them all the time. And that means that that people who had to basically be self-sufficient, you had to kind of everything you needed, you had to be around your little area. All of a sudden overnight, people become more and more consumers of buying goods. Revolutionary. And then the entire family structure would change because of the Industrial Revolution. We're doing the most basic element. Families needed lots of kids. Why do you need kids? To work. Because you have to produce almost everything for yourself. All of a sudden, overnight, you start buying things and you need as many workers. And here's something that might shock you. Kids eat. Yeah. And they demand clothing and shelter and are expensive. When they're making stuff, and now you gotta buy it. The entire family structure would change. And we'll come back to this. Transportation revolution combined with the Industrial Revolution would literally change the world. The world you think of right now, and think, oh, it's always been this way with the way families are organized and everything. Less than 200 years old. That's it, 200 years old. That's not very long. And the thing about it is, if it could radically change that quickly, in that short of period of time ago, it could change again. It could change really fast. It's kind of amazing the cataclysmic changes that happened because of a worldwide pandemic. So think about it for a second. It could change fast. And so this is not a permanent thing because it blew them away then. Absolutely blew them away. So speaking of that then, let's get to interchangeable parts. Because once you start this element, what about this concept of having machines make parts? This is going to be called the American System of Industry because Britain was blown away when they had a worldwide exposition in London. They basically have, it's going to be called the World's Fair in the future. England was going to show off how great their empire was and how much they produced. And yes, it was pretty remarkable. But Americans brought this concept of interchangeable parts that can be made individually, they're put together to make a whole manufactured good, and blew Europe away. Yeah. Okay. And so with that, Eli Whitney's probably best known for this. No, we did not invent it. And there's been efforts to do this down the road. But the key element of this is the American system, machines making these parts. There have been efforts to have individual, you'll do it by hand. Now, Eli Whitney's probably best known. Anybody know for what innovation that he probably stole? Yeah.
The cotton gin?
Yeah, the cotton gin. But he's also known for this. He tried to get a contract from the Jefferson administration to make muskets. Each musket had to be made by hand. If it's made by hand, that means each musket was individual, or I'm sorry, was unique. If this musket breaks, what do you have to do? Either get a new one or literally by hand kind of make the part to fit in. Your wood, you can figure carving, but think about the skill needed to require to make the barrel or the hammer or the trigger mechanism. So these are pretty unique, skilled people how to make these. Whitney went to Jefferson and said, I have machines that can make the parts. And all you have to do is put them together. It'll be cheaper and more efficient. There's a shortage of skilled craftsmen. Jefferson, who loved machines and tinkering, he was a scientist. Yes, he was fearful of industrialization. At the same time, he loved the machines and the science. He loved the skilled artisans who could make them. So Jefferson said, show me an example. So Whitney came back 3 weeks later with a barrel full of just musket parts. And this is one of his Springfield muskets. Eventually become. They still make weapons in Springfield, Massachusetts. A barrel of the parts of 10 muskets, just parts. And he dumped them on Jefferson's desk. And Jefferson was like a little kid, I guess. He jumped up on the table, like putting these together, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't wrap his mind around something this precise that you could put together, take apart, grab other pieces, put together, and it would all work. Now, that's not that unusual for us today. It blew him away. And Eli Whitney got the contract. That's the beginning of interchangeable parts. I should add Eli Whitney was lying through his teeth. He did not have machines. I was hoping for the contract to give him money so maybe he could find someone who could make the machines. He actually had them handmade and they very carefully carved them and made them so they could all fit together. So this might shock you. People sometimes lie to make money. Yeah. Here, if you give me $100, I'll teach you a method to avoid this kind of scam. Good deal, huh? Who's with me? All right, so there's Springfield. Well, with this, he eventually would come up with these machines to make other machines, AKA machine tools. Machine tools make the products. Machine tools like this drill, this is at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, to drill a hole into a piece of steel to make the barrel for a musket. Here's a lathe to make the stock. So the machine tools are the machines that make everything you use. And a lot of times you'll hear them say, because they want to make them sound more technical and precise, and it's really a misnomer. They'll say like robots are doing it. It was a big deal in the 1970s and 1980s where they said robots were making cars. So to be very precise, they're just machine tools. That's all they are, just machine tools. These are the most expensive kind of machines you can buy. And one country dominates the sale of machine tools and makes them, especially per capita, by population, the biggest industrial and exporting country in the world. What country? No. No, it used to be. The United States allowed companies for short-term profit, allow them. And now we have to buy them from other places. Germany is, Germany makes so much money. there's reasons why in Germany, they get, 16 weeks of vacation every year. And I work 36 hours a week and get paid not quite as much as the median income here, but they have so many vacations and other benefits because they're taking advantage of this. But machine tools. What do we call the machine tool? What do we call the means of production, the tools that make products? Capital. Capital, the means of production. So capital, the machines, the building they're in, the fuel, the power source, the land, the transportation, all of that is capital. The money required to buy it. Often people say capital and they say a capital investment and everyone thinks money. Well, they think money because you need money to buy this. So capital is the whole thing. What thing is not capital? Humans. We're not capital, technically. Proto-capitalism, the machines are humans, slaves. But now we're going to machines. So the new world is being created very quickly. Once you have machine tools, the factory system. This was already happening in Britain. Production is centralized under one roof. This term comes from India. When the first Portuguese arrived in India into the 15th, into the 16th century, the big warehouses in docks at Calicut in India, where they put all the India known for their great fabrics and textiles. The big warehouses Indians called factories. The term is from India. So a centralized location like a warehouse, well, the factory is a warehouse for machines. And all the production under one roof. And look at all these belts whirring, water power, steam power. These places were dangerous places to work, obviously. Because the power source is a single power source, a single wheel. So they all have to be connected. And so, all production on one roof. This is a big shift. Now you can have the new transportation. Instead of decentralized production of people's homes and little shops, now with the new transportation revolution, remember, all the goods can be brought to one space and then taken out and sold. And think how things would change at the end of the century when you get like refrigeration, where food production can go now to one spot and then go out to be sold. And now we all require for everything we need. We can't survive without the transportation revolution. I could, I'm from an old generation, that's why I grew up, but you guys would struggle. Now back to this. So people would work with their hands, make things from their hands. Now they can't do that. They can't compete with this. So if you want a job, you have to go to whomever has the factory, the capital. And what new name is going to be given to the person who has the capital? That's where capitalist comes from. And the economic system based upon capital, capitalism, all comes from the machine age of the Industrial Revolution. Yeah.
Does the word capital come from this too? It's like what's the term?
Even there's a relationship to it, but it is from it. But there's a relationship, yes. So with that, with the factory system, the first ones, textiles in New England. And no, we're not going to go every area, but why New England? Location. First off, they're going to use what products to make the textiles out of? Cotton. And you think, why do they make, we're down here with the cottons? Fuel. New England has fast moving streams. You want fast moving streams to power these textile mills. This is in Lowell. They still have, Lowell, Massachusetts is set up like it's 1840. And the textile mills has just started. The National Park Service does it. They still make textiles and buy stuff there. It's one that I wanted to see. I heard it's great. It's amazing. Of course, I like going in like the little shops. That was like 1840 and all that. But this gets back to my oft-repeated statement: the Forest Service is amazing, or the National Park Service is amazing. The Park Service does incredible things like that. But why New England? The fast-moving streams. Oh, water power. There's water power. There's lots of low mountains, lots of valleys, so you get water going downhill. In the south, it's flatter, meandering streams. Not good for water power. Same reason why dams, they want to build dams on places where the water is flowing down. Also where there's ground where they can anchor it. But why? To get faster moving water. I should add virtually every place that has a dam has a dam. I should know what dam is. Oh, sorry. And all of you, let's dam everything. Sorry. Yellowstone, look at dam Yellowstone. Back to this. Fast moving streams. All you do is put in the wheel and it will operate all the belts for the entire operation. And you have to shut it off. You can shut off them individually, but that's pretty hard to do. The big thing is, at the end of the day, when there's no more light, you lift that up. I think you can all see the problem with this. Floods, drought, ice. It's risky. You have to buy the areas along waterway. That's where people want to live. These are more expensive. They're incredibly complex. Samuel Slater was an Englishman. He's an Englishman. He was a foreman in one of the first textile mills in Britain. Now, English merchants made their textiles in Scotland. Why Scotland? Fast moving streams. So they got Scottish laborers who were desperate, and the English had kicked them off the land, so they were very poor. Yeah. Should remind you a little bit of Hamilton, trying to get farmers to become wage earners because of high taxes. I should add, there's a problem that the Scotsmen had in these textile mills, all these whirling threads, and you get close and a thing grabs them. Thread grabs their clothing, it throws them in. And Scots wore, anybody know what they wore? No. They wore long shirts down to here, and they would belt them. Huh? Say it again. Yeah. Yeah, kind of. But if that would get caught, the whole body beat. So ironically, it was an Englishman who invented the kilt. So it'd only be wrapped on the waist. So if they grabbed here, it would just pull off on the waist. Ironically, kilts are going to become a symbol of Scottish nationalism against English imperialism. And the English would actually have to come back and ban the kilt that was invented by an Englishman. It's one of those strange little quirks. You want to hear my kilt story? It's not a great story, but it's one of great regret. No, I was in Edinburgh, Scotland. My wife and I were walking through it's a really great place. I had haggis. And I found out only tourists have haggis for good reason. You know what haggis is?
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
They bury, is it like a goat stomach?
Mm-hmm.
And they just bury it, and then just there for 10 years, and then they bring it out. It's stuffed.
Yeah, those stuffed with various other sweetmeats, like the pancreas and everything, which is my favorite. Who's with me? Pancreas. Spleen's not bad. You have to slice it in. By the way, what do you guys have for lunch? So, okay, back to this stuff. I went to the store, and when I was there, the English pound was about $1.50. 1 pound was worth $1.50. Today it's about 1 to 1 because the English economy has slipped so much in the last few months. And so I saw a kilt, a black watch plaid kilt, handmade, all this stuff. Really, it was, I like black watch plaid. I think it's a neat color. But look at it, and I thought, I'm going to buy this. And it was like 220 pounds. It was pretty pricey for a kilt, but I'm going to buy it. You're like, when am I going to get a chance to see a kilt like this? So I'm going to buy the kilt. And my wife comes up to me and asks a very rational question. Yeah, when would I ever wear a kilt? Now, I, of course, responded, every day. That's all I'm going to wear is a kilt. And then I realized, I would never wear a kilt. And so I didn't buy the kilt.
My dad wants to be buried. He has
Well,
one.
I know where you can find some.
He has one and he wants to be buried in
Because
it.
you wear it normally.
Usually we use it to put it under the Christmas tree. My dad wore one for Christmas. I'm not even joking.
I know. One of my best friends did. Who has a kilt? Should we have kilt day? All right, so Slater, England put all kinds of controls on the plant on these factories. because they didn't want their secrets to get out at foreign competition. Yeah, this is pretty common. The United States has certain laws about that. China does, Taiwan does, all those kind of things. Most of the microchips are made most of the microchips in the world are made in Taiwan. And so, you know, they have strict controls. And so they want to make sure these secrets wouldn't get out. Samuel Slater memorized the entire workings of this incredibly complex machine, of all the power looms and spinning jennies and spinning mules, the power system. He memorized it and went to Massachusetts and built his factory, which is kind of remarkable. But don't forget, people back then had significantly better memories. People today don't even compare. Once again, my generation had amazing. Every successive generation has significantly worse. And they had such great memories. And people before him had great memories. I'm actually telling the truth. My memory is probably significantly better than yours. No, that does not make me smarter. I can remember a lot of wrong and dumb things, but my memory is better because I had to remember. It's by the nature of technology, etc. Okay, it does make you smarter, but it is nice to have that recall. It is nice. Work on your memory, trust me. And some of you, just one of those things. But back to this. So once you have this, you have production in Massachusetts. But once you start making these ultra complex factories, how do you organize them? And this is going to become called the Lowell system. Now, they're already doing this. English shop owners were doing this in Birmingham or Manchester or Glasgow. But like the Lowell, 3,000 employees under one roof. How do you control it? How do you organize it? We have one power source. Do you want, when you drop that wheel into the water, you want all the mills running. And you want them, if you own it, then you want all the mills to stop at the same time. You don't want sometimes that people go, yeah, had enough. I'm going to go take a bathroom break, grab a meal. Good luck. Or you want to start promptly at sunup and people start showing up whenever they feel like it. You don't want that. And so this is going to be an organizational system to organize workers who were once free and independent and make them go into factories. How do you do that? It would be personified by what they would call the Lowell Mill Girls. Now, if you want people to operate this, do you want men or women? Well, they chose women, young women. Okay, one for a very practical reason. Women generally are a little bit smaller fingers, or they're therefore a little bit finer. They can reach between the spindles and the bobbins to untangle knots. There's a logic to it. What else? Yes.
You can pay women less.
Why? Yeah, women are paid less now. So, a lot less now. Why are women paid less? Okay, women make about 75 to 80 cents on the dollar in minimum. No, you're right. But I'm asking you why. We have to get into why this happens. No, oh, there's an element of that, sure. Yeah.
It's not as taxing.
Yes. Incredibly physical and difficult. And the other thing too is, yeah, men might do other jobs, but if women are doing things in the home, especially back then, that was incredibly hard. So I know what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's more men construction workers than women. That's because of the sun.
Well, not misogyny, but it could be discrimination. But yeah, there's an element of truth that men are a little bit bigger. Hey, Greg Hannaford.
They women because they expect experience and they were desperate for any sort of ages.
Now, even though you're right, but men were too. Especially men who lost a farm, yeah.
I could tell you why they were young, because they wanted them to work as long as possible.
Yeah, but that works for men too.
But maybe because women are later expected to get married. But the men not getting education.
Well, women start getting, but it's those elements of truth there, but it's even more fundamental, yeah.
They like weren't used to getting extra education.
Now, that's a good point, but a lot of men didn't work getting wages, even the wage systems we know it didn't make sense. These are really good answers. But how were women supposed to act? What does that mean compared to men? Yes.
Display obedience while never stepping out of line and blindly swear allegiance. Let your country.
Okay, so with that, women were taught from day one to obey. Boom. Men, by the way, who taught them? Yeah, who taught them? Their mothers, of course. So if women are taught to obey, that's part of the reason the wages were low. That's part of the reason they had jobs like this. That's, women are taught to obey. Look, here are the workers. Who's in charge? Women are socialized to be more obedient. And it still kind of exists now. Men are supposed to be unique and individual, got to do manly things like swing from trees, while women do put their fingers between bobbins. Hard, backbreaking, awful job. They can be beaten. Men might fight back. Oh, sure, men have got to be beaten in submission too, because they got to figure out a way to get men to take these jobs. Men were expected to go out and work and be independent. It was hard to get them to do this. It's going to take a couple generations to make men do this. Therefore, you want everyone working at the same time, all working together. They all work at the same time. They all go to the bathroom at the same time. They all eat lunch at the same time. They go to work at the same time. They come home at the same time. So you maximize efficiency. In fact, you also kind of want to control their life outside. So they would have dormitories where they would keep the women. So you don't have them going out and drinking too much because you don't want them hungover in the morning. Gee, I wonder why drinking dropped. Remember I told you they used to drink 10 times more? The world is changing. You want them to all be there at work on time. So I noticed Romney checked his watch. You want them to pay attention to time. Nobody looked at their clock before that. Nobody looked at this until the factory system. Nobody cared what time it was. Now I want you to be at work on time. And are you free then? Do you have rights once you enter a factory and get a job? Can you practice your rights, like something as simple or as basic as going to the bathroom? Because if you go to the bathroom, you got to shut something down. Do you have rights? Is this compatible with democracy? That's why Jefferson called workers like this. He saw the future and saw them as wage slaves. It's not. So there's even timetables. Without first bell, then have a bell, because no one knew what time it was. When to get up. Second bell, go to work. Dinner bell, eat. Next bell, you're done eating, go back to work. Evening bell, it would ring. And it would have different times because it's sun up to sundown. In a textile mode, you can only run by daylight. You don't want fire in. Have you been around a lot of cloths? There's a lot of stuff that will burn. Bells. So you got to condition people then to follow the time and follow the bells. And you got to convince men to do this too. Coerce them. Okay, adults are too late. They're done. But kids, yeah, you can coerce them to follow the bells. To all be at one place at the same time. Have a time where they can go to the bathroom. Have a time where they can eat. Have a time where they can go home. Gee, I wonder if there's going to be something creative. This is me pondering this. That would manipulate and train people and do it in such a way they might not even know that they're being oriented. It's kind of like behavioral science, like Pavlov's dog. The bell rings and you feed the dog. Pretty soon, what do? The bell rings, and what does that dog do? Saliva, just ready to eat. Do we have something like that? I don't know anything at all like that where we follow the bells and you're punished if you're late and we all eat at the same time. No way! Does it work, by the way? Look at the hallways. And how many of you look at the clock? Whether you like it here or not, don't you all look? You can't help it because you've all been conditioned. You've been trained and you didn't even know it. And here's the best part. I love this part. The bell rings and what happens? You don't even think about it. And then you click, I gotta click run, and you gotta get back in. And then fourth period, you start getting hungry, don't you? And if we get an assembly and there's like, get out a little bit out of whack or something with the time wrong, where the fourth period comes, or we have to eat after fifth period. Think how hungry you are. Why? You've been trained, manipulated. Now, that's not necessarily good or bad. It's only bad if you don't know that you're being manipulated. All of you kind of suspect it. Think how many weird rules we have in school. Obey. Obey.
So is it easier to like train that into than it
So,
is? Is that why then?
and also worked on the factory floor too. And yes, marriage was an issue too. They would make sure they wouldn't get married. And once they got married, they're fired. Of course, you know, that was pretty common. The big thing was for women up until the 1980s, which really common thing. Fired. Yeah, very difficult. And the problem is, you know, you don't have any money. So, you know, it's great. So, I'll get a different jobs. I hate this, but you have no money. What are you gonna do? It's always easy to say you're gonna move. But I mean, if state government closed in Helena, I don't know what would happen because that's where most people work. And I don't know what people would do because most people probably couldn't afford to just move. Have you been to those little towns and see them all dying and wonder that's what happens? Let me phrase that, both of the towns in Montana, including the town I grew up. This is the beginnings of labor unions. And so workers, do workers have rights? That was the big element of labor unions. Unify together, to say together we demand better working conditions. Hey, all those spinning bobbins, that thread wraps around your finger. What happens to your finger? I mean, it's just gone. What happens to you at this time? You're fired. You might have to pay for the cloth you want too. Coming out of your paycheck. Have you heard of something called workers' comp? That's because labor unions. Unions used to be really strong. They're really weak now, but these used to be really strong. And companies hate them because it raises pay. The first labor unions in the United States would be those women in these mills. Incredibly brave, especially considering how they were socialized to obey. I mean, this is real bravery. Well, with that, let's get to steam power. So once you have that, you have iron and coal in the middle Atlantic states. So here are coal mills. We'll talk more about child labor down the road, but children as breaker boys are in the factories. These mules would live, be born, and die in those hard rock mining camps. They'd work them to death. But iron and coal, that's Pennsylvania, New York, in between New England and the Chesapeake, there's the middle Atlantic. And once you have that, one thing we have to get to really quick. Steam engine. Once you have this, you have the steam engine. James Watt came up with a new power switch. Yes, he's British. There's a pump to pump water out of mines. You can imagine that's a big deal, called the Newcomen engine. He perfected it to make it more efficient, where you have this this cylinder and this piston. You shoot a jet of steam in there, it pushes the piston up. You suck the steam out with a little burst of cold water, so it kind of condenses real quick. Sucks the piston down, back and forth, up and down. And that is the engine of the Industrial Revolution. That you could use to turn this hammer, that would eventually turn a wheel. Thus, you're going to have the power for, here's the American patent of this. That wheel could run a factory. Now you don't have to worry about ice. Here you have a little car. And they had a bad habit of blowing up, so that wasn't the most efficient car. But eventually you can see what's coming here, railroads. So that is a mill powered by this big steam engine. That's in a British manufacturing museum. Jumping right here then. And then there we have all this innovation, yeah.
It's how they knew it was wrong, how they were treating them. Or did they think it was okay?
It depends on who they were. And the big thing was they could justify it by saying, well, they could always quit the job. And so they gave them, that always gave them cover. It always reminds me of those bad movies you see with mobsters and they say, hey, it's just business. Well, I'm making money. There was an element of that. They knew about that. It's part of the reason why they feared labor unions. So if all this innovation, now we're going to come back to this. We'll come back to this slide here. But innovation, once you start building stuff, that breeds more innovation. Hey, it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all to make a power loom for textiles unless you have power. It makes no sense to build a railroad network unless you have a steam engine. It makes no sense to build a computer unless you have electricity. It makes no sense to have a wheel unless you have animals to pull it, a wagon. In the Americas, there's no wheel, not because the people there weren't smart. They were very smart. But why make a wheel if you have no horse? So that, the railroads breeded all this innovation. Coal, iron, steel, all of it, railroad. They needed it all. You had to come up better, more efficient, better engineering. You need a whole financial system, money, capital assets like stocks and bonds. You need banking. You need eventually come these new bigger businesses because railroads are so big. And think about communication. You need telegraph. You need eventually the phone. All of these things because of railroads. I mean, think of everything that railroads need. Iron, coal, steel, wood, leather, and not just a pile of it. You need precise engineering. You can't have any yahoo build a steam engine or build relay track. Hey, I'm just going to throw some track down. What do you need? Trained engineers, surveying schools. That means you need college. All of these things had to come because of railroads. Every 30 miles, these steam engines had to be refueled. What's going to happen every 30 miles on track? There's a little town. You ever wonder why there's all these little towns? And like, why is there a town? The Northern Pacific Railroad. They needed a town. All these little towns, railroads, Roundup, Perry, you name it, railroad, Bromberg. So I know the bells about, oh, this is a railway truss. That was pretty amazing. Oh. Attention, people. I know what you're waiting for. Let's write a thesis before the bell rings. You know, just on top of something, Simon, practice. I know we don't have much time. I didn't, but I started telling you too many stories. Just wish I had about 2 more minutes, but you know, you guys are quick and efficient. Remember, take the main point, the why. Remember, what did the railroads create? All these new what? The ignorance is part of it, but that could be patience, family, markets, patient, all those things. Done with it? Yeah, that works. And then do you have a why? What ties it all together? The railroads is in the questions. We need something. That's cool. Just a little thing. New economy, you got it. New markets. I know we're not much time. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Wow, you guys are a tough crowd. I still give you grades. You guys wanna go have lunch? Nope, stay in here. I don't care. No, we can't go across the bathroom.
You're trained.
I know, yeah. We've been totally manipulated. It's so weird. We think it's normal. Most of human history, how does it happen? So who's the weird one? You know, okay, everyone look at your feature statement real fast. I know we'll find that stuff, but you have three components. You have three, A, B, and C. And we mentioned a bunch of them, like new markets, new innovation, education, all these things came about. Different family dynamics. I know the ball's probably in a ring. Want to see mine real quick. And that is by no means anything special. It's pretty blah, but it tells what to say, right? Oh, the new markets, I could tie everything together about just buying and selling stuff. So new markets, new economy. Oh, I should add, I am working very hard. When I was in school, we were taught we didn't need a comma here if you have a list for the and. No, we weren't supposed to have a comma before the and. That was taught, no, if you need one. And now, which actually kind of makes sense. Yeah, mine, yeah. And someone noted. Wow, what a nice day. No, my mom. Oh,
That was the baby. I'm the youngest.
you got what?
Like my dad has a 30-year-old son. So they're older. I'm just.
Have a good day, everybody. We'll do another thesis tomorrow. I'm sorry, I didn't budget my time. Yeah,
Thanks for exposing the school system.
Huh?
For exposing the school system.
Everything's Germany.
Yeah.
Where? German Bavaria.
There's a new name.
I live in Bavaria.
How long?
2 years.
Oh, why were you in Bavaria?
I'm a military.
Oh, sure, yeah. In fact, that was in southern Germany was the US occupation zone, so that's why the US soldiers were.
I lived in small town when I was in Wilson.
I know about it, yeah. What you think? How old were you?
I was 9 to 11.
You remember much?
Yeah,
Did you like it?
I loved it. We lived next to a castle.
Huh? That's cool. That's the great thing about seeing like a castle,
Right.
you know, this 1,000-year-old
And we
building.
would have little like fairs in the town square. So, and we lived like 2 blocks away, so we go
All that.
like.
Don't get me wrong, there's good things about here, but there really are some deep. Germany's a cool place.
I'm a military kid too, and I've never been out of the country.
Yes. You're not been to, can you speak any German?
Not very well. I can order ice cream.
One of the problems too is, you know, I do a little bit of German, but they speak English so well.
Mhm.
Like, I would try to order something in German, and they immediately start speaking English. It's like, you never practice. That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you never got to.
I'm learning German on Duolingo, so.
Good for you. That's, yeah,
I'm very German, so why not? I'll fit in.
that's really cool. You're in Germany.
Whoa, I'm never the first one here.
What?
I said I'm never the first one here. I don't have any ideas right now.
Yeah, you're not.
It's on the spot. I didn't study actually. On the spot. I get the next thing from here. I'm not that.
Where did we get to? Did we get to this?
Yes, I am.
This look right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's really ended.
Perfect.
It's
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
No, it was that.
I think it's one of those things, I know the bell boundary to ring, so get it down.
I was like,
Like the shirt?
maybe I was like,
Got front?
maybe it's getting my chocolate. Who's
Play.
writing these?
Oh, well, we'll get to it.
Oh, well played.
Wow. No,
Well played. We got Looney Tunes and Peanuts here. Very good. Ready. Everyone's gotta be ready. Like they shit in the bath. It's supposed to be a little warmer today. Wasn't it supposed to be like 50, because it's supposed to be 2 to 3 feet of snow next week.
That's the Texas. Exactly. Day. The day. It's a day. I do. Oh, is it? I was thinking about sure now. No, that's a part of the. Oh yeah, it was like better roads, more railroads, little ships, industrialization. Oh, whoa, system. Oh, wow. Yeah. Like those people with machines to efficiency, also there. I really don't. Do not do it. That's like. Like this. I had something like this. Man, it fell out. I feel like that's even hard, yeah. Yeah. That's the. But yeah, I like our little braids. Yeah.
How are we doing today? See that? I should put Sean up. I can't help it. Now watch this.
That one's even better.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody have a pump before we get started? Pump. A basketball's flying. You might have a pump? Come to class prepared, people. Basketballs. Hard to spin it when it's flat. It starts to. You want to just have me work on spinning the basketball on my finger? So you guys have to know everything I would have covered over there. Why not? But I think we got to here, right? Get this down. I think I yesterday saying that. I got re-recorded all that.